During this time of the 42 generations in which Christ was born, Israel was going through constant turmoil in order to birth this child. Now look at verse 3.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head.
Okay, now this right here, this great dragon is talking about Satan. And these 12, this 7 heads and 10 horns is representing of the different nations that he would use to afflict the woman. We don't got time to go into that. That's another lesson for another time. But these 7 heads and 10 horns, these are the nations of Rome. Okay? All right, verse 4.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
Okay, so now, what he's talking about, the tail that drew down some of the stars to heaven, that's all the fallen angels that came down with Satan in the rebellion that took place in heaven. So when he was cast down, you notice that in Luke the 10th chapter, Christ says, "Behold, I saw Satan as a lightning falling to the earth." Right? This is what he's speaking of. That when Satan was cast out of heaven for the last time, he took a third of the angels with him. Those angels that came with him are all these guys of the nations. We don't got time to go into that, but we're going to get back to that at another day. Look at verse 5. Hold on. First and foremost, too, you see here they said, and the dragon stood before the woman and was ready to give birth and devour her child. Notice that the C is capitalized in there. As soon as it was born. Now, everybody knows that during the time of Christ, that the Romans had already was occupying Judea. And what happened from the time when Christ was 1 and 2? They tried to kill him. And the angel came to Joseph. You can find this out in Matthew the 2nd chapter and Luke the 1st chapter. That the angel came to Joseph and told him to take the child into Egypt for a time until Herod was dead, in order so that Christ would not be killed. All these things can be confirmed in the Gospels. All right. So right here, this same dragon that we're talking about here, it stood before Israel, and the whole thing they wanted to do was to kill Christ. All right. Now just look at verse 5.
And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne.
Okay, so we know that when Christ gave his life, the Bible says that all power was given unto him. He was now to be, when he come back the second time, he's going to be the one that will be ruling from Jerusalem for 1,000 years, and all nations will be ruling. The Bible says in Isaiah, he will be ruling with an iron fist. Right? Now, but we know now, the Bible tells us in Romans the 8th chapter, verse 34, that Christ now sits on the right hand of the Most High, making intercession for you and I. So after he gave his life on the cross and rose on the third day, we know that he now sits at the Father's right hand at his throne. All right, now go to verse 6.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, and they should feed her there 1,260 days.
Wow. So we saw here in Luke 21st chapter how I told you how they went into the mountains and to flee. This was around 70 AD. When did the slave trade begin? Around the 1600s. But when did actual trade and stuff started happening? The 1400s. Around the same time, what Revelation says here. They were going to be able to go into Africa, and they were going to be able to be there for the whole time, being protected and hidden from the woman until he be released. Now, let me show you an image of the path in which they took. Now, put that other link in there. I think we got a link that says that right there. We're putting another link in there that you're going to be able to see these maps of the migration from Judea to West Africa. Look at that. See right here? This is Israel. Some of them went into North Africa through the Atlas Mountains, but the rest of them began to go down here through the Nile River, connect with the Niger River, and come to West Africa. Right? This is how they were able to be there the entire time, hiding from the dragon. That's where they got there. That's how they got there. The Most High, you see here in verse 6, we said that the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And when you start doing your research on West Africa, we're going to put another link in there where you'll be able to see that during this time, that's when the Europeans found them. Your boy Christopher Columbus. They found them. They found the ones in North America and South America, and they found us by using the Bible. That's how they found us. Initially, they act like they was good, like they did when we was in Jerusalem. But then eventually, after a couple hundred years, they went to enslave us. And that's what the Most High said was going to happen to us anyway. Now, let me read you something here from that link that we just put in here. Let me give you a read here so you can see what happened. This is the historical link right here that was put into the box. It says here that the Jewish presence in Africa began to expand significantly in the 2nd and 3rd century of the Christian era, which proves historically and biblically that the people that went into West Africa was the ones who listened to Christ in Luke the 21st chapter. So historically, it is proven that the West Africa began to get a migration of people from Israel during the beginning of the 1st and 2nd century of the Christian era. Our people that was in West Africa, they didn't find out about Christ when they got here in the slave ships in the 1600s and 1700s. They came to West Africa with it. They will never tell you that. All right? Now, it says extending not only in the Sahara Desert, but also reaching down to West African coast, and possibly the Bantu tribes of Southern Africa, where 40,000 members of the Limba tribe still claim Jewish roots to this day. We get an opportunity, look up the Limba tribes in South Africa. Now, the names of the Jewish communities of the south of the Atlas Mountain, many of which existed well into the Renaissance time, can be found in documents and synagogues in Cairo. So if you go into the northern Africa and study some of those places, there's old churches that were started during that time right now of our people that was in northern Africa that eventually migrated down to West Africa. Now check this out. In addition to Jewish, Arab, and Christian accounts cite the existence of Jewish rulers of certain tribal groups and clans identifying themselves as Jewish scattered throughout Senegal, the Western Sudan, Nigeria, and Ghana. Among notable Arab historians refer to the existence of Ibn Khaldun, who lived in the 13th century, a respected authority on Berber history, and the famous geographer Idris, born in Spain in the 12th century, wrote about Jewish Negroes in Western Sudan, and the 16th century historian Leon Africanus of Spain, who was raised by a Jewish woman working in a family household, said that he that have taught him Hebrew and learned Hebrew in West Africa. A man that cited this in the 14th century, Leon Africanus, a man from Spain. Okay? Now, also, I need to show you this on the Israelite migration to North and Western Africa. And that other link that we put in there, it says that after the destruction of Jerusalem, the temple, many Hebrews fled into Africa. Between the periods of Pompey and Julius Caesar, about 1 million Hebrews fled into Africa. The Hebrew hid and lived in Africa for over 1,500 years, from 70 AD to 1619 AD. And all this stuff was written by George E. Lickenberg in a book called Jewish Roots in Africa. Crazy, right? They never told us any of those things. All of the different factors about how we got there, you can find in your history, but nobody never told us. That's the reason why we grabbed hold of the whole continent of Africa, when the truth of the matter was, we was only coming from one place. Now,